There, so that gives you a little idea as to how your footage will look if you shoot using a variable ND filter from NiSi at f2.8 that was shot, by the way, on a Sony a7S III. Let's first get the main questions out of the way. What's a variable ND filter and who is it for? To answer the first question, what is a variable ND filter? Basically, it is like putting sunglasses on top of your lens. Why would you do that? The reason you would do that is very simple. I mean, there's plenty of reasons why you would do that, but the main reasons are: A, if you want to keep the ratio between the shutter speed and the frames per second, because you might know the 180-degree rule, which means that if you're shooting, for example, at 25 frames per second, your shutter speed would be 1/50th of a second. If you're shooting at 50 frames per second, your shutter speed would be 100th of a second, so you double it. In order to double it, sometimes you need to reduce the amount of light that comes into the lens, and this is what you use it for. In fact, you can see when I twist, it varies the amount of stops of light that can go through this pair of sunglasses that you're putting on your lens. For example, in this video of myself, I was shooting at f4, 25 frames per second, 1/50th of a second. In this second clip of myself, the same one, you can see that the depth of field is not the same. There's way more depth of field and there's no bokeh basically, because the aperture of the lens was f20. So you can see the big difference between using this for filmmaking or not. Another reason, which is a little bit more technical, but it's the fact that some profiles, such as, for example, S-Log3 on the Sony camera, have a native ISO, and that's the same for a lot of other cameras. For example, S-Log3 native ISO is 400 and it's 12,800. Those are the two native ISOs. So let's say that you need to go high in the ISO and you want to go all the way to 12,800 so that you don't get any noise. You could do that thanks to an ND filter, because you would put the camera at 12,800 versus, let's say, 8,000 or 10,000. So you go a few stops more of ISO and you use this to reduce the extra light that you're getting into your lens. So technically speaking, this would help you get a better image, keep a more controlled level of ISO, and control exactly what amount of light you want to get in your lens. I don't think this is the best for photographers, the main reason being that you would get some vignetting, or you might get vignetting on the sides, on the corners of the image if you go too wide, and when you're shooting landscape, you tend to go quite wide, around 15-16 mil in a full frame camera. So the solution for that would be to use square filters. For example, these guys here is the NiSi V7. I can slide these guys, so I can just stack them up, put them on, and that avoids having vignetting, because it doesn't matter how wide your lens is, you will have the same result throughout your image. The other reason is that these guys can be stacked up, this cannot be stacked up. So this is only a variable ND filter, which is very convenient. But again, for photography, if you're going to do some landscape photos, for example, you will take your time, you will just take your camera, put it on a tripod, decide how much strength of an ND you want to put on your camera, and then put it accordingly. Same for gradual ND and so on and so forth. You couldn't do it if you're using a VND. All right, there's a few other things that come with it. For example, you get this pouch. This little pouch here is great. I know it's just a pouch, and NiSi tends to give you these pouches to protect your lenses that you're buying, your glass. And that is great because, for example, on this shoot right here that I did for a friend where he needed some BTS shots, I put the variable ND into my camera bag using this pouch. And that was very useful because whenever I didn't need it anymore, I would just put it back into the pouch, and that was it. I know it's protected, I know where to find it, and there's no way I'm gonna scratch it. It has a waterproof nano coating, which means that even if some water, some rain, some drops go on it, it is not going to leave marks, and it's going to be very simple and easy to clean off. NiSi gives you a little lever to control the strength of the ND from 1.5 to 5, which is very handy and useful. It has a very thin frame. Honestly, once you put it on the camera, you really have like maybe half a centimeter sticking out, which is very, very thin, and it's actually great. And the cool thing is that the quality of the glass itself is very good. It is not resin or plastic. I know this is a bit of a given, but I want to mention that because when you buy this type of accessories for your lens, you spend a lot of money on your lens. So you want to make sure that whatever you put in front of it will not deteriorate or destroy the quality of what you're filming. They claim there's an enhanced color when you're shooting to avoid color shifts and other such artifacts. I did not notice that specifically when I was filming with it, but I did not notice artifacts either. Finally, last but not least, there's no X or cross effect. For those that don't know what it is, when your focal length is wide, I have a 28mm here, so I couldn't really test that, but let's say you shoot with a 16mm for full frame or wider. Sometimes you have this problem where you start seeing a bit of an X forming like this. I'm gonna put some photos here that show you how it looks. And NiSi claims that this doesn't happen no matter how wide you shoot. This is very good because having that effect obviously will destroy your shot and will not allow you to film properly. And that is something I did not have a problem with. So I believe that claim is correct. So it is a bit of a photographer, videographer 101 to use an ND or a VND filter on your lens. So this is a bit of a no-brainer if you need to shoot outdoor and you want to keep a shallow depth of field, or even just be able to control the depth of field, because maybe you don't want to shoot that shallow and you want to shoot maybe at, I don't know, f5.6 or f8. In the video I showed you earlier, I had to shoot at f20. That tells you how insane that is. And it wasn't the brightest day. It was very bright, okay, but it wasn't the brightest day of my life. So if you shoot in summer when it's really, really bright, like let's say at noon or at 1, you will have a hard time shooting without using such a little guy here. There, I hope I answered all your questions. If you have any other question, write it down in the comment section below. I will answer gladly. And I see you, like always, in my next video. Bye-bye.